It's time to talk about EVE Online. This is Matterall. It's today in EVE, Thursday, July 30th, 2020. I'm here with my friends McLeod and Caleb.
Hello, guys.
What up, everybody?
Oh, great. And now the calls begin. Take it away, McLeod.
Well, firstly, I'm gonna make just a little comment about like the calls that you always seem to get at this particular time. I genuinely starting to think that it's people who watch the show who are just like, he's starting a show up, let's troll him. Well, you never know.
Be right. I wouldn't doubt that. It's EVE Online after all. Dirty tricks are part of the whole thing. Okay, let's look at the numbers. I say I want to point out some things, but I don't want to go through these numbers over and over again today because it's Thursday. I feel relaxed. Good company. I want to talk about some issues instead. Just say that everything in Fountain Delve and Aquarius is going pretty much the same as yesterday. Same with the Forge and High Sec. I don't see any big battles on the horizon looking back.
Yeah, there's a lull, but there was one interesting thing last night, right, Mac? The DBRB bomb was kind of fun when there was a bit of a skirmish that Ron was actually covering on his stream, and then suddenly the big red boat came in and actually did a, for once, perfect bomb run and wipe almost half a fleet.
It is I used to do a little bit of bomber seeing, and I mean that's what you live for. Like you live for that moment, that righteous, successful bombing run, and it just feels so good. I think we had recently we had a few semi-decent bombing runs. I mean, I say semi-recently, I mean like about a week back or so. But there were a few people in the bombing fleet that hadn't had that kind of experience and kind of got that experience. And it's like, it does hook you. Like, it does feel really, really good when you manage to kind of inflict so much damage in comparison to like your sort of small scale, your small stature as a in a little T2 frigate.
Yeah, the only downside is that as Sugar was pointing out in chat, that since it's DBRB, there's going to be like 4 or 5 people that at least going to need hearing aids for the next few days.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's actually kind of true.
Because apparently the boat will scream like crazy when he actually succeeds.
Oh, he does, and he laughs like he laughs like a maniac as well. But it's strangely enough, it's kind of it's like he laughs like a maniac, but also like a child in that kind of sense, and you can't not kind of feel a little bit of joy from that as well. In that sense, when you hear a child laughing hysterically, like you can feel the joy in the room, right? And it's kind of like that.
Well, it just handicaps the fleet for the entire rest of the evening, right? Because everyone will be having problems hearing. So there's going to be a lot of stragglers and people that are not jumping on the right gates and shit.
All right, let's get off what I would consider filler and get to some stats here. Sorry, guys. All right. So initiative. Looking at you need headphones, I think. Top SOV changes in the last 7 days. Initiative continues to lose parts of Fountain 14 systems in the last 7 days. That overlaps what we talked about yesterday. There's something new I want to show you before we get to Alliance movements, because we want to check out what happened with Army of Mango losing 4,000 people. And that is that...
that they lost.
Hey. We'll get to that in a second. Hold your thoughts. Well, what I want to show you is something new that came up with Dotland. It was requested, I think, on Reddit. And the guy that runs Dotland, I forget his name right now. Warpy?
Wallari?
Yeah, Bellari, that's it. He decided to go ahead and honor the change that was being asked for. So now you can look at a place like Fountain here and see the iHub control ownership.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So you see the TCE
See what
ownership.
What I was using prior to that change, like I imagine that's a map chain, like you can look at it on the map, so you can see it like sort of a very much more in a graphical kind of sense, right? Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah. So previous to that, I was basically using the structures list, which kind of does give you an indication, but it doesn't show you like plotted on an actual map.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, yeah, he changed it. It must not have been a difficult change, just a database change. But there it is. Now you can check iHubs. And now it's much easier to see, from HopHib, where the invasion started, you can now see that all these, what color is that? It's kind of an off-green brown, has now turned into Horde-controlled iHubs, which means they have the building permits, which means they can build the bridges, which means they can build the infrastructure quickly, as opposed to the former owners. So that's a big change.
Yeah, so I put in links there. Basically, the first link that in Stream Chat, the first link was the one which I was using, which kind of is pretty good. It kind of does show a little bit more information, which also includes like vulnerability timers and reinforcement timers and stuff like that, and when they come out. You can you can reorder the list, so it's basically the most recent timers, both vulnerability and like reinforcement timers coming out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But having it in a sort of a map view is very, very, like, it is very beneficial.
Yeah, Evi, this is a great app that we used to use a lot. We'll do the same thing. Let's go and look at Fountain here.
I don't think I've tried to do it on Evi, like, show the iHub ownership. Like, I don't know. I was never able to get it to work. I don't know whether it's whether you can get it to work or whether it was just me being terrible.
No, it's funny because I'm doing a lot of product management and product design, and there's a few rules to it. And one is that it has to be valuable, first of all, that whatever you're building, and it has to be easy to use, viable, and this is not easy to use, unfortunately. I mean, maybe if you get used to it, it's easy, but that's the problem that this has. It's definitely valuable, but is it more valuable than Dotlan? If it's not, you're not going to make the change. So I think it has to be more valuable, but it also has to be easier to use. And for familiarity, people who are familiar with Dotlan, it's not. So that's why it's not easy to adopt a new mapping system. Especially when, there's Dotlan is being responsive to people and making changes that make sense to the times. And the iHub change is a big change because, as we know now from the last year and a half, iHubs are what really count. More than anything else, iHubs count for various reasons. But so we'll stick with this. But I'll work with Eve Explorer, because I really like the guy and I like the software he designed. But until I can use it really well, I probably won't. It looks like there's a lot of stuff being contested, but you can see that Rect, which is the ticker for Pandemic Horde, is just taking everything over, and that is totally expected in the last few weeks.
But isn't it only halfway through? Am I reading this correct? They need to get to the lower left corner to actually get their beachhead, right? Isn't that right?
To get into position to make a beachhead into Delve, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much what I think Jintan actually covered this fairly well when he was talking about the state of everything strategically. And I've been asking when they're going to take that beachhead. Or
holy cow! They just got into this region. They got to clean it up first. That's what's going on.
But but that's like only half done, right? And they've already been proclaiming their victory, and that Fortress Delve has already fallen.
It's not,
they haven't
war
even landed on the beach. I thought they had actually gotten close to landing on the beach, which is why I kept using the Trojan War comparison, right? But they're only halfway there.
What are you talking about? They've broken the backbone of Fountain. They've driven initiative to YTAC 2, which is basically the doorway to Delve. They're not, the people who are taking over Fountain now are not getting there within a few days. They're going to get there within a few weeks, maybe a couple weeks, but they're going to clean up all this stuff. Maybe if this is a long siege, start some industrial work, start building bridges for fast travel, whatever they need to supply this thing. It's not like break a region, break the next region, break the next region, break the next region. It's like you break it, you get into it, and you populate it, and you put weight into it. You move your ships forward. So
and that's fine. I would agree with you on the normal circumstances, but the problem is we're not talking about anywhere else on the map. We're talking about Delve, which is this stupidly easy defensible region, right? Which is pretty much hidden in the outermost corner of the galaxy, right? And you can only really get there through that beachhead, and they are so far from it. So I'm just saying
we are far from it.
Well, the thing is, Caleb, like you can look at it. You can look at it. You can look at it from a map kind of perspective and kind of go, well, they've broken into that, but they, like I imagine you're kind of thinking like, well, why are they screwing around with this area? Why don't they just concentrate their area all the way down towards YTAC 2, right?
Yeah, exactly. They need to push through if they want to actually get those fights, right? Because they're not going to get the same fights in Fountain. So I was about to go into like why they're not doing that, right? Exactly. So the reason why they're not doing that is because there is, although yes, they're encompassing iHubs and stuff like that. And TCUs and all that kind of jazz, but like that's a secondary thing that you can obviously see on the map that's been done quite significantly. But that's basically a secondary thing that they've been doing alongside, and in parallel with, basically taking down structures as well. Right, and that's the thing. The structures are the important thing, because the structures are places where essentially hostiles can potentially utilize for strategic purposes in order to hit fleets and in order to get around various different locations.
They're tether zones and stuff.
So
recharge cap.
While you see iHubs and TCUs going down, the main thing that PanFam and PanFam are kind of dealing with is basically removing those structures, because they're strategically significant in terms of how in order for an enemy to utilize to basically go round them and potentially attack them in a way that they
they're cleaning house, right?
So they're cleaning house, yes. And so this is a required thing that you have to do, otherwise your forces can get routed.
Oh, and that makes perfect sense. It's just from the talk, I was thinking they were like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 weeks further into the future right now, and they're not. So it's just I find it weird that they are talking about this as if it's going to be over soon. If they're going to actually get to the win condition, we're talking 3 months at least, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think they think that. I think there's something going on right now that you're feeling, and that is there's the what you call it, the shit talking part of this is what's going on. They're trying to hurt each other's morale.
Yeah. So right now morale is up, but like if you don't keep morale up, then like you need to keep the momentum going, right? And in a situation where you're grinding through structures, like you have to actively work to keep the morale up, so that basically once you're through those structures, you still have like people up and wanting to go and basically like blow some stuff up, right? So that's what all of the herfing and blurfing and all the propaganda and all the talks and stuff are about. Like, it's to keep the morale up, keep the momentum up.
How is Initiative's morale at the moment? Just because you're kind of a bit of an insider, so and Brisk has not really said much except respect.
What?
I haven't been keeping an eye on what Brisk has been doing and saying, so, that kind of thing. Like, he's a brash American. Like, it's an understandable thing. Like, but in terms of like our morale, I mean, we're okay. Like, I mean, obviously, losing space is never the the nicest thing to happen. But like, when you consider the fact that like how old the initiative is in terms of being an Eve, like we've won Sov, we've lost Sov, we've won Sov, we've lost Sov. Like Sov comes and goes, right?
Yeah, that's your lifestyle, right?
Exactly, it's the lifestyle, right? So if morale drops like a stone just because you lose some Sov, then there's something wrong with your alliance.
Yeah, and from what we've been talking back and forth over the past week, I'm just not really understanding the current narrative is that initiative is massively pushed and that they are about to bail on the Imperium because they are so low on morale. It's like, but they live in Fountain because they like that stuff, and this is an expected outcome. It's not like it's new for the initiative. They just sound like they expect the initiative to do something similar to a crabbing group, right? And that's just not initiative.
It's a meta gameplay. It's a meta gameplay. It's essentially like what that technique is essentially a psychological divide and conquer, right? So one of the strategic maxims is essentially if you can divide your enemy, then your enemy's power is like halved, right?
Yeah, and
so
that
that's
makes
what you
complete
want.
sense. It's just I don't think I would try to apply that strategy of almost gaslighting against the initiative, because I think they're completely invulnerable to that stuff.
Wow.
Well, I don't think everyone's invulnerable. Like, I don't think like everyone in initiative is invulnerable to that. Like, because like everybody who's in initiative at the moment has never always been in initiative for for huge amounts of time. Like, we've got people who, we've got EXO's kind of like a wormhole group in here. Like, we've got people from Darkness, that came over to the initiative here. Like, they're people who, there's people here who may not be like seasoned nullsec players, but like they're learning, they're kind of understanding, and when the long-term nullsec players in initiative basically stand strong against sort of like these whole calls of like, oh, initiative is about to bail on the Imperium, blah 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 blah. Like, when they see like the other nullsec kind of players in initiative basically just brush that off like it's water off a duck's back, then they realize that like it's not something to be worried about.
All right, let me bring in Gagarin here, who's hanging out with us.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody who watches the war, but for, what do you call it, to be open about where he's from. Gagarin is from Snigwaff, or no? He's from, where are you from?
Yeah, that is correct. I'm from Waffles.
Waffles. And from
Snigwaff, which is currently part of Pandemic Horde.
Yeah,
but nice to meet you, dude.
Yeah, but he's actually one of our researchers and does a great job just compiling all the things that are happening.
I like Waffles. Like Reza. Is Reza still like operating?
Yeah, Reza is still around.
I like Reza. Like, Reza was probably the first FC that I ever had in the that I ever was in fleets with, that kind of had that sort of like Rockstar FC sort of appeal. So I like him a lot.
Your perspective on Fountain, or do you want to give us some current events so that people have some new news?
Well, Fountain, I think that Killa B and Villy have both been on the show talking about what the Pandemic Horde standing fleet has been doing, and that's probably one of the more decisive elements. That there's always a group out looking to bash structures or entosis or something, even if there isn't an FC pinging an op. That's probably one of the most decisive elements of Fountain.
Oh, one of the key factors.
Like keeping that continual churn going, right?
Yeah, well, here's the way it's worked, and it's worked for a long time, is you have guys who play this game who play it for a long time, get experienced, and they figure out, like, they got other things in life they want to do too. So they've accumulated wealth, which translates to power because of relationships and assets. And over time, they only want to play the fun stuff. So they don't want to play the labor-intensive stuff. So what they've always done is grouped up together because you want to, being strong attracts other strong players because they feel safer. And what happens is there's not enough of them. So what they end up doing is somehow collectivizing a group that's bigger of less experienced people. So you have the two things. You have a lot of people on one end that aren't very knowledgeable about the game or powerful in the game. And you have another group that is smaller that has a lot of power, and you couple those two things together so that you can cover times when you need a lot of people and times when you just need a spear, something very small and pointed. And so those two groups have been a formula for Pandemic Legion for a long, long time, and that's what's going on here. Pandemic Horde was supposed to be that. Karma Fleet was supposed to be that for Goon Swarm. Karma Fleet is the biggest corporation inside of Goon Swarm by far. That's what happens. NC tried to have their little group called Northern Army. That fell apart. And Test kind of did the opposite. They took a huge amount of players and they professionalized a group of them. Horde did the same thing with Vanguard. They professionalized it into SIG. But you have that relationship. Small group of high reputation, powerful players with the masses. And what's happening now is Horde is fully matured into that group for the northern powers. So they have young people, meaning newer players that are excited about the game, that are in it to do everything. They're not bored. They're not bitter. They want to do everything. And that constant pressure is what's being applied to Fountain to take over these structures and that sort of stuff. And the set piece matches that are happening, that will require like a Pandemic Legion or an NC or anybody else.
Yeah, like usually with the big ops, there's at least a Northern Coalition fleet with possibly with PL having their own fleet, but there's always a Horde fleet out bashing in something, and
that was a really big problem for PL and Horde. And this is funny. This is where the Uncle NC reputation comes from. Pandemic Legion, a lot of those guys who were like, forget it. We don't want to deal with these new guys. They're we don't even want to pal around with them. We don't want them on our fleets. We don't want them interfering with our ability to be successful. And basically PL rejected Horde to a large degree. And it was NC that was like, well, we'll pal up with you. Why don't you guys hang out with us? We don't have the same relationship. So even though Pandemic Horde has the name of Pandemic Legion, it's actually closer to NC Dot. And
yeah, like I've been on a couple of fleets as part of Horde that were led by NCFCs in the Fountain campaign, and I don't think I've been in any that have been led by PLFCs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the dynamic has completely changed. But anyway, you're saying, and this is the whole point, is that there's a lot of pressure going on Fountain, a lot of it applied by the consistency of a lot of Horde players out there taking things down. That's what you've noticed.
Yes. And you've talked to Villy and Killa B a few times who have both mentioned that as a factor.
Sorry, I was distracted. Can you ask that again?
You have both you have talked to both Killa B and Villy who have mentioned that as a factor.
Yeah, right. Killa B did, especially. But anyway, I was making funny faces earlier because when I was listening to you, Caleb, and listening to you, McLeod, talk, I feel like this is a replica of last night's open comms shoot off. I forget what that's called.
Well, because that is the current discussion right now, pro and con narrative, right, and or what you would call what is actually happening right now. And I might be a goonsplainer by heart because I like what goons do, but I'm not a goon. And I'm just saying I see this very much as the scene in Troy when they're trying to lure the actual troops to come out from the cover of the archers. And of course, you don't do that if you're smart, because then you're going to get crushed. So this is basically just pulling back initiative close to the wall and then waiting. And I'm just not seeing the attackers having... I don't think they have a Trojan horse, and you can't take Castle Delve without that. I hope they do. I've heard some hints that they might have something in their back pocket. It's just without it, I don't think that win condition that everyone is saying is going to be so fucking easy. It's going to be easy. It's going to be massively hard, if even possible.
Well, no one is saying it's going to be easy. And what you're hearing is a little bit of pre-celebration from people, but I think it's psychological warfare. It's not actual, we won the war. I don't think that's what they're saying. I think they're saying, we want you to suffer out loud. You're not going to play this, oh, this doesn't hurt. We're actually just having a great time. Morale's high. They don't want to hear that. That's why they're putting pressure on you, saying, oh, yeah, well, we're taking Fountain. Oh, yeah, we're here to take Fountain. And they keep trying to trigger initiative guys and Goonswarm guys and Goonswarm explainers like yourself to say, all right, shut up already. They want to get that reaction out of you. But they're also trying to wear down the feeling that everything's fun when you're losing for the opponent. Because when it gets unfun and you're losing, you're more likely to stop showing up.
I'm just wondering who they're trying to convince that they're actually losing, because as I've said before, I'm not seeing losing numbers. I'm seeing a strategic retreat, because the destruction numbers are a fucking joke.
Yeah, well, that's what Dirk McGurk was saying last night, was the...
They are. You're not even seeing it on the actual destruction stats from CCP. They're not even making a bleep, right? Usually in wartime, you would see a massive increase in destruction numbers to the point where it actually goes above actual production.
Yeah.
This is not happening.
You said that.
Well,
interestingly.
the stats aren't like right up to the minute, up to date kind of thing, right? Like there's still a little bit of
delayed,
there's still a bit of delay in that. So like you have to kind of like next month's like MER will probably be a more clear kind of indicator as to whether those particular numbers that you're talking about, Caleb, actually definitely show like a sizable kind of campaign, a sizable kind of like thing happening.
We can tell they're shut down. We can tell they're shut down because they don't even show up on the ratting lists anymore. We can look at that right here with
the important one is, as I said before, the current win criteria that the attackers have and that they should really beat on a lot more is the fact that they've really halted any kind of resource gathering. They have taken the actual mining numbers in Delve down to about 20 to 25%. That is a massive loss. That is way more loss than any destruction numbers, and that would be my narrative, because it is equivalent to destroying value. It's just that they're not actually destroying value; they're just stopping the crabbing.
Well, they have stopped the crabbing. They're not. No part of Delve, Fountain, period basis, which was very popular for a while. Aquarius, no part of their territory is in the top 10 for NPC ratting. So that's completely.
Well, I don't really care that much about ratting, because potentially ratting is not that valuable, because ISK is not that useful in a war situation, because you can't buy imports into your area when you're at war. So really what's relevant is actual resources. It's raw materials that is important, and that is the number that they've completely put into almost nothing. So there is no machine churning right now in Fortress Delve. Everyone is hunkered up. It's a siege war right now. This is why I keep talking about a war. Yeah,
but you want them to climb over the walls like yesterday. You're saying, like, I don't see any progress because Fountain isn't, they're not even down into Delve yet. And I'm thinking, if this is a siege war, which I think it is, you take over territory, you move your power base into the territory, you occupy it, and then you move a little further. And it's inch by inch by inch by inch. That's how this war was always said to be played out. At least Vili was saying that. It's going to be a long war. We fought Fraternity or Winter Coalition over a period of 8 months. And this is going to be like that. So winning a whole region inside of, and from Initiative, which is a very powerful alliance, within the first month is progress. And what you're seeing is the psychological warfare of saying, like, we got this thing wrapped up, which they clearly don't, because Delve is not Fountain. Delve is much stronger than Fountain. So the real crux of this war has yet to happen.
Wow.
Yeah, so
okay.
really,
really just pointed out that it's going to be a slow roast. And if we're talking more like 6 months or 8 months, as you just put out there, then sure. I just think it's very, very early to start doing the grandstanding and tooting horns and claiming victory for morale, because there's a long way to Delve. They haven't even reached it yet.
Here's what bothers me, and this is why I get fed up when I hear what I heard last night is, hey, we're just having a good time. This is fun. Everybody's having a great time. Like, I'm not interested in that, Eve, at all. Like, I want to see some suffering. And I don't care if it's Goons this time or if it was PL last time with the all of Tribute being abandoned. Like, I'm out to see people show me their real feelings. You know, this whole happy talk and happy face thing doesn't work for me. So when I hear that, I'm thinking, like, is that an inoculation? Are you trying to defend yourself against misery? Is that what that... Hey, this is just a video game. It's just fun. Because to me, it means this isn't valuable. This doesn't really count. And that's terrible.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think I kind of agree with you. It's like it's the pain that's not being seen. And it seems like people are having too much fun, and the actual
I don't have fun when I'm losing. I don't have fun. Whenever I lost territory, I didn't have fun. That was not fun. Whenever I was humiliated or this or that, it was not fun. But I didn't pretend it was fun. I didn't pretend that it was like no big deal. Like, I mean, in some cases it wasn't, but I don't pretend, and I expect other people not to pretend either that they're having a great time when they shouldn't be.
So I'm going to explain something that, like, it is a different perspective from you when it comes to in comparison to your perspective in terms of losing, losing battles or losing ground, losing sovereignty, that kind of thing. So you can kind of look at, like, we weren't able to contest this fight, or we weren't able to do this, or we weren't able to do that when it comes to fighting outnumbered, right? And the fact of the matter is, EVE is very much a N+1 kind of game. When you have a huge group going against a smaller group, like, it's like, it's inevitable, right? It's like, in that kind of sense, it's like physics, right? It's inevitable. One of the aspects that we as the initiative actually enjoy is trying new stuff, right? Getting the opportunity to try new stuff. Like, you've seen us try new stuff. You've seen us fail in trying new stuff. You've seen us succeed in trying new stuff.
But you guys own it
in this situation. But that's the thing, right? And that's the thing that a lot of us find fun, is getting situations and trying new stuff and seeing whether it works. And if it doesn't, looking back and introspectively looking at it and going, was the issue down to what we were trying, or was the issue down to just the environment that we were trying it in, right? And that's the thing. Like, we may lose sovereignty, and we may lose structures in doing this, but, like, structures can always be put back. Sov can always be won back. But, like, these situations that occur, with 1,000 kind of pilots in space against you, don't regularly occur that often.
Yeah.
So these situations, these moments, like, are very rare for us, but it allows us to try things that we were never really able to try previously. And that's fun for us.
Look, Matani had it right when he was really pissed off that they were taking tribute with 1,000 Titans, which was way more than he even thought they had. He thought they had like 600, 800, which is what I thought. But no, they had over 1,000. Imperium did. They march on tribute. They glass the whole region, right? They still call it the glassing of tribute, right? That's meant to put their finger on it. So when he was mad,
but that only stopped. That only stopped because of CCP.
Finish this point. He was mad that, PL and NC aren't just going to run away. We're going to sit here, and every meta show that we have, we're going to remind the world that we are destroying them and we have our foot on their neck, et cetera, right? He was very right to be upset that they just kind of bailed on the region. I was upset too. But you didn't, I don't think you ever saw NC or PL. I'm not trying to like explain this for them, but I never did see them saying like, whatever, we're nomadic. They didn't make any excuses. They just disappeared. Whether they were humiliated or not, we don't know. But they literally just took off. But there wasn't this like, hey man, we're just having fun in a video game. They didn't make any excuses. I didn't see any of that. They literally didn't care enough to make excuses. But I do see that coming from the Imperium, or maybe the media side of Imperium. I'm talking about Brisk. I'm talking about, in some cases, Matani. I'm talking about you and Caleb and everybody else that's explaining away. This is fun. We're getting territory taken away. But it's fun.
Do you feel from what I said like just recently? Like, do you feel like that was just like hyperbolic bullshit?
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's the problem, because I am not okay. Anytime someone gets attacked, you will see a retreat of some sort until they can figure out what the fuck is going on. And I'm not seeing anything except a pretty well-performed tactical retreat. Of course, there's battles, but as I said, the battles are so small that it is nothing else. If the initiative was even being actually beat, right? I would expect those numbers to be 4 or 5 times larger, and they're not. We're not in the 10, 20 trillion range at all.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's very few situations where like you get the opportunity to, like, say, pipe bomb 2 or 3 fleets that are landing on a gate. There's very few situations where you have where people put themselves, alliances put themselves in a position where, they have carriers that you can train DD into. Like, those situations don't really occur, and so practicing techniques to leverage those kind of techniques and those game mechanics don't happen that often, and it's fun to try things out. It's fun to kind of have a poke, have a stab at something. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But if it goes right, it's fucking cool. And that's what we're after. That's what we're after. We're after, like, a situation where it's like really fucking awesome. Like bombing an entire, half a fleet away. Like, And
I think we're not even starting with I don't think we've even seen the actual fun begin. At least if this is going to be a war of the length that people are saying, the fun should start maybe this week or next week, right? I think we've only seen the very, very, very early beginnings.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you that this war is only starting. That's I think that maybe Delve has more than 50% of the Titans in the game. More, maybe 60, 70, 80% of the Titans in the game belong to one group or one group of groups. And that's going to be hard to whittle away. And I think they're counting on staying together. That's why I don't think Initiative's fighting or risking actually any big assets, right? Super capitals keep falling back because I believe they're going to try to group up with the Imperium to have some better backup so that they don't lose 5, 6, 7 Titans for nothing. So I think we have not seen the big fights yet that may occur.
And this is why I was using the comparison with chess moves, right? To me, this is really about the exchanging of queens. And right now I see initiatives activities as the queen being chased, not giving fight, not actually allowing the exchange to happen.
I don't know what quite happened with Matterall there, but
you get my comparison, right, Mark?
Make it again.
Well, if have you played a lot of chess? Because when you want to defend your queen and she's being chased around the board, right? Because the attacker wants an exchange, or at least wants to potentially kill the queen, that is a chase, giving chase, right? And the initiative to me is the queen. Until you get someone to say, okay, let's fucking fight. You can take this, and then I'm going to chase and kill your queen. That exchange has not happened yet. We're still just in the defender running away. It makes it sound like fucking Sir Robin, but it's like you don't want to exchange the queen yet. You're waiting for them to get closer.
No, and you can't really, like, you can give chase in that, like, you know, from that analogy, if you have like absolute dominance, you know, on the board, right? But at this particular moment, you know, Panda Fam doesn't really have absolute dominance in all of Fountain, right? Like, there's a reason why, you know, why the initiative, you know, moved to where they moved, because you still have a degree of superiority at that particular location. So in that kind of sense, you know, the queen was moved from one place to another. It wasn't really a chase in any way, shape, or form. Like, another kind of example of you know, that kind of situation, that sort of like chasing the queen in order to trap her and you know, trap and take it kind of thing. Sort of happened up north with Tribute, because there was a situation where essentially Imperium tried to basically island an area where NCPL's supercaps were, in order to basically remove and essentially try and remove a midpoint, or the last midpoint, in order to essentially create an island where they would just basically get trapped and either die or have to log off, like for a lengthy period of time. That didn't quite happen, and you know, NC and PL's sort of Titan fleet in God, where was it? I think you probably know where this was, Matter, because you at that particular time you moved with the super fleets that were moving out of there. But like, essentially, you know, Imperium tried to island off an area of the north.
Oh yeah, that was.
You remember where that was?
Yeah, so I don't remember the station's names, like X7 or MTAC O, but there was a fight at kind of. Let me see if I can bring up the map.
Was it SH1 that you guys were at?
Yeah, I think that was a big fight. But basically, you're coming in from Fade into, or Pure Blind into Tribute. There was a fight up front. So there was kind of a resistance. And then you guys killed Keepstars and Veil of the Silent and Tribute behind us to cut off our escape route. And what that would do would island, what you mean by island is that would leave all the supers in one Keepstar. And it's very dangerous for the North to be trapped. Having no jumping route out of safety, they would be in big trouble. So essentially they kicked the stool out from under NC Dot and NPL, and PL had to basically fall back all the way back to Horde space. So they lost all that space.
But it's very similar, doesn't it?
No, it's totally different.
No, it's kind of similar, because essentially what Caleb was talking about, like prior to you having to disappear for a moment, was essentially the situation in sort of some chess games where you haven't isolated out the opponent's queen, but like you're basically chasing it across the board. And so what I'm thinking there, like how I'm kind of sort of like using that analogy is like sort of the queen is like the super and titan group of an alliance or of a coalition.
Yeah, and they seem to be pulling back towards the front of the beachhead, right? And that's pretty much where I see the first big battles are going to happen there, and they're going to have to punch through that, and that's like a moat, and then they are going to reach the wall after that. I hope they have a lot of fun and do that fairly fast. I would hope that these things are going to happen within the next week or two, right? That they actually get all the way down to almost the beachhead and actually get those fight with potentially the initiative and a fair support from Delve proper as well. Because that's the big fight that I'm waiting for. Yeah, that'll happen.
And that's why it's way too early to celebrate that the war is being won by one side or the other. I don't think you see, but But I don't think that's what they're trying to do. But despite what they're trying to do, the impression is that they're celebrating that Fountain fell and the war is over and this is going to be easy and that sort of stuff. But here's the thing. It's not just them saying this. I mean, Dirk McGurk was clearly saying this reminds me of last time when the Imperium basically just got crushed by imploding. They lost 2 or 3 pitched battles, realized they didn't have the numbers, decided not to risk anymore on a losing proposition, and took off and went to Onan or surrendered.
Well, the issue there is the fact that, like, yeah, certain areas of the north are like they don't have beachheads, right? You can literally roll into tribute and carry on going into decline, for example, right? Or into purblind, but going from Fountain to Delve, like that's a whole other ball game. Like you're gonna have to make inroads. You have to re-beachhead into that, and that's like a secondary line of defense. Like when we're talking about the whole chess kind of like analogy, right? Chasing around a queen, like all we're doing there is basically like talking about like this particular chessboard being Fountain, right? And initiative basically moving around like the queen to sort of like get out of particular danger, right? You can't chase that particular queen around Fountain because Pan-Fam don't have ultimate superiority like in the entirety of Fountain.
Yeah,
like they have it in most of Fountain, but there's an area where they don't, and that's exactly where your queen will go if you need to put it into safe harbor, right? And even if we when you start losing the superiority in lower Fountain, like you're just going to be basically moving into Delve, and then we have another situation where like it's like 4D chess. You're on a different layer now. You have to go into a different layer now.
There's a lot of things
a different board
that are different. Actually, Villy makes a point that I pointed out a few weeks ago, which is this is not World War B. This is World War B 2, according to Villy. Okay. There is no escape for the Imperium like there was last time. Last time, they could basically say, we're clearing out. Get your stuff. We have these lily pads, Astra houses. We can just keep jumping to them and get out of this whole region. And that's how they got out. That won't work anymore.
This is also the cornered dog thing, right? And you're dismissing that because, well, if you think that the fight is, I'll agree with Willie that it's not going to be the same thing. But when you have that much at risk, that's like cornering a dog. It's going to bite, and it's going to actually take the fight this time. They need to take the fight this time. So the question is, how is their survival strategy based if this pressure is actually going to be as hard as is being claimed?
By the way, Avalon makes a good point. You can asset safety a super.
And it's going to cost you. It's like it's going to cost 15%. You money to get it out the other end, but like
15%. But you can do it. I think the money. If money is not an object, that's not a big deal. 15% tax on keeping it, basically. Let's say everybody can pay that. You have 1,000 Titans. They're all going to end up somewhere, and they're all going to end up in the same place. And until a new place gets picked, you're going to have to move all those supers from that one station, right? Because if you have a whole region and you asset safety from it, it all goes basically to the same station in low sec, or 1 or 2 stations in low sec. I think that's how it works. And I just don't know if that's a great solution. If you want to, you can do that, but you're going to want to sit there for a long time before you try to get it out. Anyway, the point is there's no easy escape of the lily pads on the Astra houses, which the Citadels had just come in during World War B, so people were figuring out how to use them, and they were not tuned to the point they are now, so they can't be used as an escape route anymore. That's a big deal. I don't think wormholes can for the bigger stuff.
Yeah, super caps can't fit through any size wormhole.
Yeah, at all, in any form, even in pieces, unless they're in a freighter, I guess.
Yeah, but you can't build them, so just to
travel through to some other part of space. And then there's always the question of where you're going to go. If these guys are motivated to come into your territory and take you down, Are they going to let you pop up somewhere else and just be like, that was fun. Let's let you pop up wherever else you are and create Delve 2. I just don't know. I was the one that said, look, the World War B was a disaster for the Imperium, but it was going to be the biggest comeback that we have ever seen in this game if Mittani can hold this group together, which he did. And it was the biggest comeback we've ever seen.
And I've claimed that that's exactly what's going to happen this time, unless something very completely out of left field happens.
Yeah, I took a lot of heat for saying that at the time, but it was true then. And what I see now was this massive empire of Delve was going to be challenged by everybody else. And they said they could resist this. I think a lot of the media part of Delve was to project that they, not really from the leadership, it wasn't a direct thing, but a lot of the membership were like, yeah, we have 150 keep stars or who knows what. It's Fortress Delve. Nobody will penetrate that. And, Fortress Fountain, as called by Mittani, only lasted 3 weeks. There is a disconnect between the rhetoric and the reality. And there continues to be a disconnect between the rhetoric and the reality. And that is what we look at and analyze. And I think it doesn't add up. Honestly, the last meta show, and I haven't watched it in a while, but I did watch the last one, and I felt like they're in real trouble. I honestly felt like, whoa, I'm getting the impression that they're in real trouble. And it wasn't because they were being invaded by Horde viewers. It was just the level of dialogue that's happening does not sound confident at all. So they must be in trouble.
I've been thinking that the real game changer would be if some of the less committed groups in the Imperium, like the Renters in Fountain or the Dead Coalition refugees like Dracarys and Ranger Regiment, lose confidence and try to pull out.
I also think it's a shock thing, right? Because the Imperium has had at least 3 to 4 years, fat years, with pretty much no need to actually even consider enemies at the gate. This is basically elephants coming over the Alps, right? This is like, what the fuck is going on? They're actually going to fight for real this time, right? This is not just a small, we're just gonna come in and poke a little bit at the bear. They actually do seem to have a very, very strong will to actually try to do this. So I think they're shocked. That's pretty much what I took from that. It doesn't look like any actual real body shot. It looks like a sucker punch that completely shocked the fighter.
Really? Wow. That's... Yeah. But that's not what the rhetoric was at the beginning, which is, the rhetoric was like, laughing at... And I recall this because I remember a lot of people pointed out, like, they were laughing at, Test for doing a move op on Sunday. Like, who does a move op on Sunday? These guys are amateur hour. And I'm thinking, really? Is that a big deal? And it turned out to be a strategic move that took Fountain, because the move op was for these dreadnoughts they got there that put a lot of weight behind the invading forces in Fountain. And that's what won the day there. That and the work that Horde is doing cleaning up.
Well, to me, it felt a little bit like Imperium arrogance, right? They were almost sticking out their chin going, hit me, hit me, hit me. You're not going to hit me, you fucking coward. And then the dude actually bloody hit them. And it's like, what the fuck? This guy actually wants to fight.
Right, but now we got to fight. And that's what I'm excited about. Like, it's not about having fun. It's more about, like, now we're going to see people cornered and people fighting, and maybe we'll see some bigger fights. It's been a low-intensity war so far. Most of the visible action has been in Fountain. There's a lot of activity in Aquarius, a lot of activity in Period Basis as well, but not a lot of movement. I don't even think a lot of the allies are as active as they will be or should be for a war. There's a it's very low intensity. Look at how much Fraternity is ratting like crazy, that they are not being strapped down by this full-on effort. But maybe now we'll see, as things get closer to Delve, we'll see some some exchanges, where now we're looking at a fight. Because right now they're kind of chasing each other around the ring, except that one group is being kind of cornered into one corner of the ring. So that's what we're looking for.
And this is also one of the important things of what you just said, I think, is it doesn't look like this is going to be something that can kind of be taken back. It's like this will have some sort of conclusion. It's not going to fizzle out, or someone is not going to go, oh, sorry, let's go back to being friends and do a blue donut, because the personal attacks and the screechiness of the propaganda is up there where we are getting an actual war. It's just I don't know if the people that are actually going to fight it is aware of what that means, because it's been so long since we've had any real wars.
Yeah, Billy says in chat here, that's intentional, that strategy that we just talked about. It's a slow triangle that's enclosing in on Delph, which is a three-front war,
Strangle.
Which is what we've seen.
It says strangle, but yeah.
Did I say triangle? Oh, okay. I'm thinking of Triglavians, I think. But yeah, it's a slow strangle. But it's the same concept as you're closing in on Delph from three different areas coming into it. Also, I hope I'm not making fun of people directly. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to break apart the psychological part of the game, or that's what we're trying to do. And so when I feel like there's phoniness to the rhetoric, we like to cut through that kind of stuff. The big problem.
Well, you were not around in the after hours yesterday when I was pretty much having a back and forth with Dunk. And I think we kind of got to a point where one of the things that are not necessarily being covered very much, because, of course, I talked about the economics of the war, and he kind of said, well, that's not that important. And I know it's not, but it is. But the more important aspect is really who are the upper echelons, and how is this actually going to, call it meta drama, play out, right? Because this is also why I'm saying this is very early days, because I'm seeing really saying it's a slow triangle, and I'm seeing the Imperium saying, oh, they're not going to get through the fortress. It's still just talk. It's talk, and no real commitment to the field. There's no punches being really exchanged yet.
It is one of the things I liked about Northern Coalition is there's not a lot of talk from Vince, who's their leader. He doesn't really talk. You don't get a lot of Nidaspar talking. These are the guys that are making decisions and doing things. You won't see a lot of talk from Gobbins at all. You won't see any talk from Gobbins. These guys, they're not talking. They're just doing, and I think that's a big deal. In the circumstances when the rubber hits the road, when troops are moving, battles are being fought, and people are showing up to fight, there's definitely a rhetoric side to it, but it's not necessarily like the leaders of the invasion.
I think my main problem with the propaganda from the attackers is that they're putting this idea out there that I think the people that do it must know that it's not really a thing. It's unrealistic. The whole killing and destroying goons utterly. I know that the Imperium has done similar the other way around, but I think that people should know that this is actually bullshit. This is me calling both sides. No one really dies in Eve. It's very rare that you get that, because as long as the core exists, and as long as they still have resources, this is why I focus on resources, as long as they still have their nest egg potentially to do a Phoenix thing, right? They're not going to be dead. And as I pointed out to Dunk, the problem I see here is that even if you do a complete exchange of supers and titans, even if it's 2 or 3 Imperium ones for every one on the other side, I think the risk is that on the other side, that will basically just be the whole of Eve doing the favor that Aryth has wanted since 3 years ago, cutting away the cartilage and the fat, right? And coming back even stronger and leaner.
I've heard from 3 people now that Aryth quit EVE Online, he's gone. And
yeah. But you remember that he kept saying, we need a fucking purge, we need a clean up, we need to go back to being lean if we want to actually do anything serious.
Yeah, I see that as an exit strategy for them as well, if they decide to do that. I mean, if you look at there's a couple things that happened last time that we can look at, right? You want to look at history to put your present in context, and a couple things come to mind. One is they picked on people who left them. I'm talking about Goon Swarm and the Imperium. They picked on people who left them when they were in trouble. FCON, CO2, those guys were part of the Imperium, and they targeted them afterwards, right? They were going to take them out as enemies. And I think they may do the same
I would say
thing.
Test is actually in that list as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say that as well.
Test was never in the Imperium, though.
But they were allied, and then when they ended the NIP, they got a blood feud declared against them.
Well, I'm talking about like them, the Imperium targeting its own people that decide to break from them. They will be persona non grata, and they will be the fat that you're talking about, Caleb. They will be easy targets for the core Imperium. So it's an easy first target. It can be spun as a grudge for people who left us. But I think it's easy targets for good victories for the core of Imperium. That may be one thing that happens after this breaks apart, if they lose. The other thing that happened on the other side was the North, when they won the North from Imperium the first time in 2016, they set up this whole arrogant, it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke. Nobody builds a keep star unless they get a permit from us, kind of a thing. And they were trying to control the proliferation of keep stars. But they had a real, no plan after the war. They had no plan. So they basically sat around, looked around, and chewed each other up. And that's really what led to the next 3 years of instability for who was on top. And meanwhile, Delve was growing and not bothered. And that's what led to the situation that we have just a few months ago, not what situation we have right now. I don't know. I think they can really blow the victory either by claiming victory too soon, which I think they are, or at least the guys on the media are, and also by not having a plan for afterwards.
I don't really remember the exact numbers, but what was the reduction in size of goons in the Casino Wars? Like actual loss of groups and manpower? Because if it felt like it was almost half, right?
Yeah, I think it was. I think they got down to under. I want to say under 20,000, maybe even more. Yeah, it was 50, 60 is what I think so too. Billy says the same thing. I think we're all in the same place. About half the people left. Not just from other corporations and other alliances, but players left Goon Swarm as well.
And even though that's a massive loss, again, if the core remains, and this is what I said to Dunk, if initiative is still staying, if Mr. Bliss and Carneros is okay and still Imperium, I say losing half or 60% of the current manpower and even losing Fortress Delve might not even be that bad of a thing if the attackers are suffering equally. Of course, they win territory, but if they have actually wasted as much military assets.
Let's see if my cam is working. I just had a flash and everything got stuck.
Interesting. Yeah, but we can still hear you.
Okay, as long as you can hear me. I'll try to turn that cam back on. Yeah, that's where we got stuck.
Really close to eradication. That's really point out. It's almost 85% if you count everything. They
is
were
this
really
from
pushed.
from which particular era are we talking about?
The end of the Casino War. Start of it to the end of it, it was really pressure. And I think there was also some official statements that they were very close to, doing an even a larger or more radical reset, right?
To a degree, maybe. The thing is, we had this chat previously last night about the whole, trimming the fat kind of situation. And my view on it and your view on it seem to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm saying when you're being forced, it's not really voluntarily trimming the fat, but I'm just saying that this is the attackers potentially doing the Imperium a favor.
To a degree, yeah. Although it can never really be seen specifically like that.
No, it's just that the Imperium that came back after the Casino Wars was and is a lot more scary than the Imperium that existed before the Casino Wars.
I think the CFC back before CFC/Imperium back before the Casino War probably wouldn't have been able to muster what they did, when they glass tribute, and probably wouldn't have been able to do it the way that they had. So to some degree, Imperium after Casino War versus Imperium before Casino War, are two different animals, and to some degree, Imperium after the Casino War was a much more potent thing than previously. Hey, Rich.
Hello.
I got a little nervous when I think it was Dunk that almost in jest said that someone is going to flip Merkelchen, but still, that could be the Trojan that I'm waiting for.
That would be interesting.
The way he said it made me kind of nervous, because that is one of those things. If initiative goes their own way and says, bye, we're not going to be part of this, or if some flip like Merkelchen or another of the really big and important names in the core, that's something that will completely rattle the Imperium.
Yeah, that's one of the names that I can't imagine flipping.
Okay. And it's one of those type of names, right? Sister Bliss, Carneros, if some of those suddenly said, oh, we're not going to do this Imperium stuff anymore, it's not fun, we're going to go our own way and do something else, or do an alliance with or coalition with someone else, that's the criterion where I would say, okay, then a real win is a reality.
War does not come with a guarantee, and I think any side that's thinking and relying on somebody potentially flipping or defecting is, destined to lose, doomed to fail. They've got a tattoo on their forehead that reads "Born to."
We shouldn't even talk about this. It's not going to happen. The people that are in leadership for Goonswarm prefer the friendship over the game, I'm pretty sure.
You could say that any time in the game historically, right? About different people that then ended up flipping. So you can't predict that.
I won't even imagine it for this war.
Not true. I don't think there's ever... I think people who prefer their friendship over the game do not flip on each other. Can't think of one example where that happened. Maybe in lower levels, like a couple of small corporations where a friend took a bunch of stuff from a different friend, but not with the history that we've seen from these larger groups. I've never heard of any instance of somebody flipping that were real life friends, and I mean like real life friends, not a judge and GigX real life friends.
At most, you would see the most recent members of the Imperium suffer from the war and evaluate their choices in staying. You might see corporations leave, primarily ones that were focused on non-combat activities and crabbing, and such as the recently acquired Jacaries and Ranger Regiment. That's the most, and I wouldn't even bet on it. I wouldn't even think.
Yeah, that's what I said a few minutes ago, and I'd be interested in seeing if the rental numbers for Initiative Associates and Infensis have dropped hugely since they're in Fountain.
I will say I have seen rental groups begin evacing their items along with the rest of the Imperium from Fountain. What would be interesting to see is the fact...
I mean, that's to be expected.
Sorry, go ahead, Rich.
What is interesting to see is that Army of Mangoes have relocated from Omist to Paragon Sol, and that means Omist is traditionally, been quite vulnerable to attacks from Fraternity, and now that they've moved to Paragon Sol, it's awfully close to period bases, where Ranger Regiment is also located. So the fact that Mangoes and Ranger Regiment, which are have association with each other are now moved so close to each other and far away from fraternity. Who knows what could happen next?
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
They don't want to be close together. That's probably for the best. I think they're moving to period basis to keep that from being soft territory that can be attacked from period basis. Sorry, did I say Paragon Sol? Or anyway, they moved into Paragon Sol to protect it because that's where the first attack came from, or came to from period basis. So they're probably moving in there to defend it. They're sworn to protect legacy space. That's considered legacy space.
And if this war is a success and the Imperium is shattered and removed from that area, I'm curious to see where Ranger Regiment would go, because right now Ranger Regiment, which is owned by a Army of Mango's director, is right next to Army of Mango's, just one region over.
Well,
yeah, with them being right next to each other, I'd be wondering if one of them would flip to the other.
Yeah, owned, I don't know if it's the right word. You have Miss Rabbit, who invested money and is a figurehead for who was it? Well, she's a CEO in Army of Mango, but she put some money into who's the other group we're talking about? Not Dracarius, but
Ranger Regiment.
Ranger Regiment. Thank you. Sorry.
So
hold on, I'm not finished.
Okay.
We want to look at Army of Mango because they lost like 4,000 people. You see this huge spike they got? That's what they lost. I think it's the Russians that came and went.
Yeah, it was the one corp that joined within the past couple of weeks already left.
Yeah.
Konoko recently left Circle of Hell and joined Army of Mango's very briefly, so that's why there was a hike and then a massive dip.
Yep.
Yeah, they're definitely there. Yeah. So, if we're taking Rich's assumption, and running with it, kind of thing. What you also have to understand is that large coalition, leaders of large coalitions, they plan multiple kind of eventualities, and they also plan fairly long term. So you have to also understand that, Pan Fam will be thinking of the next game. It's like the next kind of the next play after the whole war against the Imperium. So we'll test. So you have to kind of understand that, once, as we're taking Richard's kind of assumption, once Imperium's, completely shattered and dead, right? It's not going to be handshakes at the end of the day and, everyone going off and living in their own little house, in various different areas of New Eden, all happy and, and peaceful. Everyone has a game plan that they're thinking of post this war, regardless of which way it goes. And I don't think it's going to be all, rainbows and happy faces between PanFam and Legacy. If you think that, then you don't really know Eve.
I know for a fact that if, however way this war concludes, whoever is the two remaining ones, they're not going to be making friends and shaking hands afterwards. Well, they may appear to, but they'll be very much prepared for war.
But what I'm saying is, if you think for whatever reason that Legacy and PanFam are going to be friends after this, it's not going to happen. So the aspect of whether Mangoes and Fraternity can live side by side together in harmony, that doesn't even need to be a thing that you need to consider, because it's not going to happen and there's no reason for it to happen.
I speculate that moving Mangoes to Paragon Sol also makes them less vulnerable to Fraternity, who's also been cloaky camping the region, and it's might have caused some disputes. The fact that it's so close to period basis makes me think that potentially after the war, maybe we would see Ranger Regiment leave Imperium if the Imperium is defeated and join up with Mangoes, and that would make them quite a potent force and also quite far away from Fraternity's long-reaching arms.
Now, what I have to wonder is considering null blocks and their propensity to long-term plan eventualities. There couldn't very well be a point where there's going to be a big super cap fight, sometime in Delve. And I have to kind of wonder whose supers are going to be initially involved in the fight, and how long it will take for the other entities to appear on grid. Because, for example, if I was legacy leadership, and in it, and sort of like Imperium and PanFam supers got involved in a fight, like, I would have to consider potentially leaving it until the last minute to get in there, because that just means more of my potential long-term, aggressors after this big war will have less supers if I delay 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and vice versa.
Yeah, I keep hearing people mostly from goons say that they need to win the war because otherwise it'll be just an eternal blue donut of PanFam and Legacy all happy together, but I don't think anyone actually believes that.
I don't think hostilities would immediately interrupt should the war be a victory for the Pappy side. However, they will spend some time to consolidate their gains and prepare for war. They are not going to be peaceful at all. There will not be these two sides being peaceful and turning it into a blue donut. They will very much want to destroy each other. And they're constantly evaluating how much power they're putting into the war and if winning the war would make them too vulnerable.
Okay. I checked out there for a minute. Trying to fix something here. All right, I'm looking at, I think where I left off, Rich raised a pretty interesting point, which was what options are for the for the people in period basis. What options are for them? And thinking about Dracarys or Army of Mango. No, not Army of Mangoes. I have Ranger Regiment. I just have a block against RR. They have some options, right? Like they can take off to Paragon Soul. They already have a connection to Army of Mango. That's a very interesting relationship that could work out. It depends on where they see this thing going. But they would be one of the groups I would look at to say, yeah, they're breaking off first, because they're not in it for the personality of Delve and the culture of the Goon Swarm or the Imperium. They're in it for the situation. And the situation has changed, right? They were in it for the situation up there in Dead Coalition. The situation changed. They found a compatible situation in Delve. Now that situation has changed. So it's going to be interesting to see where their people go. They may say, we didn't sign up for this a second time, so we're out of here. We're looking for some stability to build ourselves. So you may see that change. And that would be a real breaking point for period basis, I think. Maybe, I don't know, because it's really Goonswarm defending the region, so maybe it doesn't play out. But that is an interesting point, Rich. I hadn't looked at that very closely. Also, Paragon Soul, I honestly think that AOM has moved in there there's some more space between fraternity and them, which is always a good thing since they don't like each other. But I also feel like that's just kind of a little more of a stopping point for Paragon Soul. I think that was a floodplain for Test, and it's dry. So they're moving and building on it kind of thing. Like they're moving to say, all right, well, it's not as ravaged as we thought it was. Let's shore that up by putting some people in there. I'm not sure that's what happened. It might be a decision that was completely up to Fulcrum and the Army of Mango guys. Might have nothing to do with any strategic positioning, but it does seem like it's a floodplain that's pretty much dry, since not a lot of attacks are happening there after the first day. Although there's a huge amount of attacks. Oh, we have Villy in here now. So
before I end on it, I'll say, well, it's a difference between how they treat the floodplains. One can evacuate from the floodplains, or somebody can do what the Dutch do and build polders and make them usable land, which is what Paragon Soul looks like it's going to turn out if this works.
All right, Villy's in here, so we can stop guessing. Finally,
see if we can get her to tell us what's next.
Give us some comments, Villy. What's going on in this war?
Well, I mean, just to the last thing you guys were talking about, I don't really believe in the concept of floodplains in general. I think it's a it's a loser strategy, and Paragon Soul, while it may not be a core test or legacy region, it is a bit of our space nonetheless. And obviously when Goons launched their kind of major attack on Paragon Soul and put most of it in reinforce, we began taking measures and looking for ways to reinforce the area to ensure that no space was lost.
So, Army of Mango moving into Paragon Soul, is that actually happening?
Yeah, they're staging from Osif.
Okay, so are they making incursions into period basis from there, or are they actually...
Yeah, they've been beating up on Ranger Regiment and the locals in period basis pretty regularly during the night.
Well, what's
or
that
during the
like?
time that the rest of us sleep, I guess you could say.
What kind of position is Miss Rabbit in if Ranger Regiment and Army of Mango are going at it?
I mean, obviously they have a pretty good relationship and, a little bit of friendly rivalry and the ability to shoot each other in a way that's not like hyper aggressive or hyper, how do I put it, polarized, much like the rest of the conflict is sometimes a healthy thing for people. People enjoy shooting each other in this game usually, and if you can do it and have fun with it, why not, right?
I kind of feel like she's got the best of both worlds because she's got, whatever happens, like she's going to be on the winning team in some way, shape, or form, right?
She's bet on black and red, so
yeah,
she'll win something.
Yeah, that might not be inaccurate,
Yeah, but I don't like this happy talk about like they're just wrestling like brothers. I want to see some.
Well, I mean, to a degree,
there has to be sadness.
I see some blood somewhere.
Well, there's lots of blood everywhere else. It's just that, like, in the, Ranger Regiment versus Mango Theater, it's, two people in the ring throwing punches, but they're both kind of smiling and having a good time. There's not that, like, that hatred that, is carrying the rest of the conflict.
Yeah, this is a different situation in that these guys have like friendly relationships and stuff. But, there's a lot of complaining about, the problem with EVE is that the leaders got too cozy with one another, going to these meetups and buying each other beers, and then no more real wars, no more hate wars and that sort of stuff.
Well, I guess it's good for Eve I didn't go to any of those meetups then.
That's probably true. It's good nobody bought you a beer, so
Which of the groups consider themselves to be like Olympic athletes, or the FCs consider themselves to be kind of Olympic athletes to some degree? Was it AOM or was it?
That was fraternity.
Fraternity. Because in that kind of sense, because in that kind of sense, like their kind of conscience, or at least their their sort of morality, well, maybe not even morality, but like they kind of like their headspace, right? Is kind of would be completely fine with that situation going against Army of Mangoes, because like it's. You don't have to have a hate feud to go into an Olympic match against another opponent, and compete against them. Like, you can have that match. You can, beat each other to a pulp, and then get up afterwards and say, good match, dude.
I get you. We'll come back to this point in a second, but I want to continue on with because somebody mentioned here, MDK said, credit to Villy for shaking it up, unless it's a ruse. And there is that rumor now that you and Matani have dreamt this up for the good of the game.
Yeah, I could tell you, not a ruse. Like, I don't know, man. If this kind of stuff doesn't,
if it was a ruse, you wouldn't be saying that it was a ruse.
Sure, you got me. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, the thing is, like, it would not even really be possible to do it that way.
I know, but the point is, it would be fun if someone like yourself and the Mitani or similar upper echelons, especially the guys that hate Super and Titans gameplay right now, has decided that, we're going to get everyone to burn their fucking toys so we can start over. That would be a funny fact.
It'd be next level. It would be next level.
Onto something that isn't a ruse. Villy, is with my speculation on Mango's moving to Paragon Soul because of continued cloaky camping and harassment from Fraternity, is that a valid one? I mean, Omist is quite far away from the battlefield, and moving them to there
the campers are chasing them.
The campers?
It's more that they thought it would be a great way to, contribute to the war and help, and it obviously has.
I see, yeah. I noticed that some of the cloaky camping groups jumped out of fraternities to get a loophole to continue harassing them. And obviously moving them far away from fraternity spaces, offers them a lot more breathing room.
Indeed.
All right, so good point, Rich. And going back to the ruse, so it's not real. I mean, the war is real. The idea that you
listen, if people want to think it's a ruse, they're welcome to think it's a ruse. But I mean,
ticked off the. Well, you ticked off the deny, and now you've ticked off the accept. So we're firmly into the camp of nobody knows.
Everything is a ruse.
It's just believe what you want.
This was all planned by the Mittani and Lady Scarlet back when Bob was a thing.
Go at it with the Occam's razor, gentlemen.
I mean, here's the reality, right? I don't even think it would be possible to ruse at the level this stuff is going on at. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking to my ass here. Maybe somebody could do it, but I'm certainly not that convincing of a liar, I don't think.
Well, it comes to these things, if you're talking that level of deviousness, right? Of course, you can't plan everything in detail, but you can't. You do have the ability to set something on a rail and then just hope for the best, right? And see where things fall. And this is why my claim is that if something like that was planned, it would require a few more people to be in on it. So we can't really just say that it's your ruse.
Yeah, it'd require a lot of people to be in on it, and that kind of thing never stays quiet anyways.
Well, it just needs to ignite, right? Even if it kind of came out that was kind of a plan in the past, it still wouldn't stop what's going on right now. Right? That train is gone, right?
Yeah.
All right, so
we had that funny discussion a while back about CSM members being in the know and whether they are doing these things very deliberate and timed, so it actually coincides with some changes that are coming in the future, right? And this is a similar thing. You can't really prove these things.
Well, I think it'd be pretty clear if we were, and certainly one of the things I've seen happen. How do I put this? The other members of the CSM would easily be able to call that kind of thing out, and I don't think you have to reasonably worry about anything like that. So,
well, all right. I mean, when we asked you, you were starting this out. There were some signs of it's the right time for this. The game needs it. Even ProGod's whole speech was this is good for the game, that sort of stuff. But as far as the collusion, it's the invading forces that are colluding, not the enemy of yours in Delve, the Imperium. I think all that is fair to say.
I don't know what you mean, sorry.
I mean, you guys did get together and say, hey, PL, hey, NC, hey, Horde, for the good of the game, let's take on Delve.
Yeah.
So that's true. That's diplomacy, is what I'm saying. That much is true. But you never consulted Goonswarm and said, hey, let's do this big fight so the game isn't so stagnant. And they're like, yeah, okay, you guys hit us first. That never happened.
No.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, I wanted to do the same thing against NC in, cache drone regions, whatever, but Goons weren't interested. So it's, they get to be the one on the spike instead. So.
Oh, interesting. That's right. Is that when you invaded Awasa or whatever and nobody came?
Cache, yeah.
Cache, yeah. What was the reason that Imperium gave you for not showing up?
Well, Mittani was mad at ProGod Legend, so he's like, I don't trust you guys, and da-da-da. So I was like, all right, fair enough.
Ooh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense now. You just put a couple puzzle pieces together for me, because Aryth fucked off from Eve, right? And one of the things I heard was he was mad that at the distrust, like the leadership of goons just distrusts everyone, so they're not willing to work together to do things. And I have a feeling
it was Aryth metagaming me at the CSM to get me to do attack cache, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. And then, when they get back, they're like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, I'll do it alone. I figured they'd come along eventually, but they weren't interested. So.
But Aryth didn't change his mind. I think he got overruled, and that's why he's quit. This makes perfect sense. He sets up a kill, and it's another good move, and Aryth's made some good moves. He's overridden, and he quits. And in return...
I don't know.
No, this is speculation, but
that's all speculation, sense. Right? And none of us will kind of know the truth of it.
It's always speculation.
Wow,
Aryth was a pretty smooth operator. I'll say that.
Well, I kind of feel more along the lines of the Delve experiment that he had been running for such a long period of time and had been basically planning meticulously for such a long period of time. Kind of got dumpstered by 60p themselves. If I was Aryth, that would piss me off.
But again, a little bit back to what I mentioned earlier. One of the parts of his end game was a culling. How it was going to happen and be executed is, of course, something that is everyone's guess. But it was part of his plan. It's one of the things he wanted from way back then.
Yeah, but he got that in Delve. Did he want it again? I mean, that's not what he was proposing. He's the one that built the program that would be successful, that would draw everybody into Goonswarm and bloat it, which was part of his plan. Part of his 9-step plan was to get the people.
Well, this is why, jokingly, I could say currently what Imperium is suffering from is constipation, right? Because Aryth wanted to eat everything up and then only retain the quality and then shit everything else out.
Maybe, but I honestly feel like you guys who think this might be tinfoil, it's not tinfoil. I think that this works together. Billy wants to attack NC and cache. That's worked out by Aryth. That's a deal that he makes, and it's not backed up by his group, so he fucks off. And that causes that lack of support, causes the reverse situation. So literally... This literally turned on that decision of not helping out Test.
I don't know. I kind of feel like, Aryth, with the amount of money that he's able to sort of leverage, getting, Test. No offense in any way, shape, Billy, but getting Test to deploy to take to take that on. If that goes south, I don't think it's some kind of massive issue for him. It's like he's just playing, playing some games here.
Let me answer Goonie Point here.
It's about the amount of effort put in, and I don't think I don't think Aryth is really kind of, getting someone to deploy a certain area and try and take up some space. That's not a whole bunch of effort that he's put in. That's been basically reduced to nothingness.
Sure it is. Sure it is, and he's expressed. Dude, you just don't know. He's expressed frustration about this in the past. This makes perfect sense to me now. Aryth is no Diplo, says Goonie Point here. Just FYI. Well, thanks for informing that he's not a Diplo, but he's the one that put together the CO2 kill. He's the one that put 7th Realm into Pureblind before it was unplugged. He's done some things that are diplomatic. He may not have the title of a Diplo, but he definitely had enough clout to call some shots to make some deals. And that's what he was doing.
I'll tell you what isn't speculation.
The deal was not even about in-game assets. If I read and have read Aryth correct, when he was talking about these things, his main focus was how do you convert the people that are in the Imperium or join the Imperium into what I would classify as true goons, because to him everything else really doesn't matter. It's temporal. It's something that ebbs and flows. It's about converting people to the what you would call true believers, or as close to real life social friends as possible. The parts that can't be removed or destroyed in game.
I'm not giving up this point. You guys keep trying to distract me. I'm not giving up this point because I think this is really important that Aryth put together a deal to put Test and the Imperial Legacy against Northern Coalition and take the fight to them. He got overruled, as happens, and it has happened before. He fucks off from the game, and the situation is reversed, and now Imperium is under attack and losing territory. This is a big theme. This is a big theme.
I'll tell you what, it's an interesting angle, and I'd like to see any sort of confirmation that he actually buggered off a little bit. But
I've got it from 3 different sources that he's no longer playing EVE Online. 3 different ones. So I get and people take breaks, so it could be anything. But I think this is bigger than just like, I'm out of here. This is a war. Like, you're not going to abandon your guys during a war unless you're pissed off at them. He's the guy with the money. He's the guy with the money. He was the guy with the plan. He's the guy with the money.
I'd like to address a point by the Grid Show, who's getting increasingly irate about Villy involving so many different groups. Well, to me, I speculate, look, it's a catch-22. If they don't want to get involved and Test goes to war and Test gets beaten, then, well, they've just lost a Kingmaker. They're very vulnerable to Goonswarm. So for somebody not to partake and, for them to abstain from it, they're putting themselves at risk. It's a position where they have to get involved.
Where'd Villy go? He's gone quiet.
I don't know. That guy said like 3 lines of text to me like when I was in the chat earlier, and I just blocked him, so I don't know what he's saying. Like there's people that are like rabid like dogs of the propaganda stuff, and I'm just like,
usually there's consumers, consumers of propaganda.
Sure, but like there's no point trying to like argue with them. Usually they're just like so fervent.
I mean, look, when there's 3 coalitions, one coalition can't go ahead and wipe out the other without, the other one wanting to get involved, because if there's only 2 coalitions, there's no Kingmaker, there's nothing that could break the tie. Mm-hmm. And in this case, for Test to challenge Goons, it could mean the death of Test, it could mean the death of Goons, but, one side doesn't want to end up having to face the other side alone, so...
Bill, you don't have to admit this, but I think you are the key player here. Actually, I think Gobbins is a key player too. But I think you were saying something's got to change. Can't have this the way it is. So let's double up and attack the north. Okay, that didn't work. Then we'll do the reverse. We'll double up and attack the south. Not because you dislike either of these groups, but because you want to see the weight of the game change at the top.
Sure, there's some degree of that.
Well, he's saying that all the alliances are scared unless they join together. Well,
yeah. Like, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but Goon's the largest single entity in the game. If you don't have a large blob to fight them, you're walking to your own death. Like, shocker. Like, yeah, we're going to team up.
Yeah, people are scared. Fear is our most primal emotion. People get scared.
Well, I don't know if fear is the right word so much as just sensible. Like, I'm not going to walk myself to my own death, if I can help it. It doesn't really seem quite logical.
What's interesting is that if the Mittani or Marana or whatever diplomatic corps said no to the deal of attacking in cash, let's put it on Mittani because he's the final word, because he didn't like or trust Pro-God, Pro-God becomes a very pivotal character in this entire thing.
Well, Pro-God's always been a pivotal character in our relationship, so.
Yeah, but I think it all turns on all the undermining work that he's done against Mittani over the years. That's interesting. I mean, I don't know if I would trust Pro-God, not because he's deceitful, but because, he's just unreliable and sometimes, but.
That's not very nice.
I love Pro-God. He's one of my favorite people, but I don't, He's left me ditched in some station after he parked a fleet so many times and never come back to pick me up that I can say that as one of his followers.
Yeah, that sounds like an experience other test pilots have experienced before.
He'll be like, just park it here, guys. We'll be back to pick you up later tomorrow, and nothing happens. He's on to the next thing. And what sucks about that when you're a player is like, hey, this is a 300 billion battleship. I don't have that many of these, But he doesn't care. His ships are paid for. Yeah. Anyway.
No comment.
Yeah. Well, this has been really interesting from my perspective. I hope you guys have seen some interesting stuff here. But I think we got to the origin of the war, and it's really, really cool. I think this is.
That's very interesting.
You're not being sarcastic, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting that Billy was originally planning on doing this to PanFam.
Right. Oh, a wedge. Now, maybe if you take that narrative, you can wedge it.
Oh, they know.
Oh, okay. So you inoculated yourself against that, right?
Well, when I said I was planning to invade the drones, when I was trying to invade the drones, it's not like I was just making shit up.
It's not like you were thought of as a friendly alliance leader.
Holy cow. Well, listen, the war's not over. It's not nearly over because the Imperium in some ways hasn't begun to fight yet. But they're definitely on a back foot. I think losing Fountain isn't something that they would give up just without thinking about it. So I wonder when this tale is told in the future, if Imperium isn't the winner here, it would be an incredibly momentous decision to say, no, don't send people to attack NC Dot in cache. We don't trust ProGod. That is a momentous and bad decision in the long run if Imperium loses here, because it would have collapsed the Empire on top of them.
On top of that, I have a small question for Willie. When are you reaching the beachhead? When are you going to be in Delve proper? Do you think?
Well, Phase 3, which is called the approach on Delve, is scheduled for about a month from now. So.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, we did have other news, Providence, and some stuff's happening there. I don't have it all sorted out, but it looks like CVA is helping Snuff out. And I don't know, Providence is all twisted up right now. Billy, you were a part of that. You were the one that negotiated a NIP. It's still in place. Have you talked to those guys at all? It's not like you have a lot of free time or anything, but
I haven't really talked to them a ton, no. As far as I'm tracking, they're doing their thing as they generally do, and stuff's happening. I'm really not following the Providence situation like at all.
You just brokered that and took off, which makes sense. But
you make me sound like some
it's weird,
burglar
dude.
in the night. It's like you brokered the deal and then you were fuck out of there. You're like,
well, when Matani said test is next, I thought there was a target, but what he really meant was test is next to be king. Because that's what's going on. If you look at it, that's what's going on.
That sounds a little much, but
no, I don't think so.
What he means by that, if to not be facetious, is like test is next on our true hit list or whatever. I totally know what he meant.
I'm twisting it around because the irony is that right now you're the one waving your hand and things are happening, like, hey, Providence, can you guys work this out? You have developed the diplomatic strings to be able to put that deal together without even much effort.
Well, the part of the problem is that in general, goons operate on, there's an American foreign policy name for it. I can't remember, where it's basically like they don't want to get involved in people's affairs. Something like that. Yeah. But the reality is you always have to be moving. If you're not moving, you're sitting still, right? You're making yourself a target. And over the last couple of years, goons have slowed their movement continually, to the point where to get them to do anything, that there has to be this incredible motive, this incredible push from somewhere else to get them to do anything. And that kind of creates this situation where when they are finally pushed to the point where they have to do something, they're not ready for it. They're not used to it. It just creates this really awkward dynamic, I guess you could say. And maybe I'm describing this all wrong, but I'm just trying to.
No, that makes sense. But I think they have been moving. It's just internally growing. Probably more. And it's kind of sad if you think about it, because if Mittani, and I'm just speculating here, so this is just speculation, but if you're on top of the Imperium, you're worried about your guys' internal health. So you're worried about them being happy and liking being a part of the group, maybe acquiring new people, that sort of stuff. But as long as your borders are safe and you have good security and you're able to maneuver and everybody's making money, then you're thinking you're being good to your people, and that's kind of what you should be focused on. So marching them off to a conflict is not necessarily something you want to inconvenience them with if they're happy with what they're doing. Maybe a SIG, we'll send a SIG or something, but not, you don't want to mobilize when you're building an empire that's pretty content. And I think Delve and Imperium were pretty content. I know, Bastion and Fountain. By the way, it's not just Initiative and Fountain. Bastion's up there too, but they had some territory. They had some fights. They had some territory. They were really building something. I think Initiative was having a good time being able to project from Fountain, not really take any invaders onto themselves. They're projecting all the way up into Cloud Ring and Fade and Pureblind, and they were striking out from Fountain. So these guys are in a good position. They have a home, they have the windmills, and they have the army out patrolling the provinces. Things are going well. Why would you inconvenience all that with a war against someone who's not a threat to you in Cache?
Well, it's not just about Cache. It's about everywheres to a degree, right? Like, part of the thing is that it's all of the places and all of the locations. So, how do I put this? Obviously Cache is like kind of a piece of it, but I'm trying to figure out how to word this. There's there need, like, the goon problem with, like, one of the biggest things we identified as like the weaknesses of the Imperium for the last while is that when they ended their SIGs, they lost their kind of day-to-day content, I guess you could call it, like their day-to-day reasons to log in and do fleets for a lot of their membership. And that's the kind of movement I'm more referring to. It is not necessarily the gigantic fleet stuff, but just the general stuff, like the simple movement.
Yeah, I've thought that one of the things that Pandemic Horde isn't doing very well, even though I think we're doing really well, is that SIGs aren't as successful as they have been in Goons.
SIGs where?
In Pandemic Horde haven't been as successful as they have been in Goons, and that's one thing I think Horde could do better.
Is that right? You're in Horde, right? Or
Yeah, I'm in Horde. Waffles is part of Horde right now.
That's right. I wasn't sure if you'd gone independent again or not. Yeah, they definitely copied a lot of what Imperium was doing. The SIGs, the funny characters, the little octopus, the good branding, the way they name things is, humorous, kind of memey. Like, they adopted a lot of, maybe it was a parallel creation, but I think there was some adoption. A lot of the strategy might have been looking at Goons, and Goons might have figured out, like, this is working and this is how you play this game. And so there may only be that path, or that may be the best path. So, of course, people are going to copy it once they figure out that it works.
Yeah, if it works, there's no shame in copying what other people do that works.
Yeah, for a long time, there was a resistance to copy it, though. I think Vince, in a very short-sighted way, was like, nope, we're not going to do what they do. We're not like that. You're not going to turn my NC Alliance into a bunch of crabbers. That's not going to happen. Instead, we're going to deploy against some other Spartan-like alliance. And that's why they went after Initiative a lot, because Initiative was kind of like that. So they went after him 3 times in like 2 years. So I think there was resistance to settling down, making an empire. But I don't think Gobbins was that short-sighted. I think Gobbins looked at it and said, nope, that's the way the game's made. That's what we have to do. We'll do that. And it wasn't until the North was taken away from NC. That they finally said, okay, you're right. We can't take on 1,000 Titans. What's the plan? We'll do it. I think there was that kind of a shift at that time.
Well, I'd like to ask, what's worth more, and what is, Fountain or Period Basis? Sorry, not Period Basis, Paragon Sol. Which one is worth more?
Fountain.
And which one is currently flooded? And which one is currently staple ground?
Shit to defend.
Well, we'll see how the war goes.
Well, historically, I'm pretty sure that that's always been the case, right? It's always a seesaw back and forth on who holds Fountain.
By the way, Rich, since you're here, Volta lost 230 people. What's that about?
That was Origin leaving.
Yes, Origin has left, and a lot of the former Origin members have made another corp. They're now currently basing out of Losec and do not purple shoot at roams. We encountered them last night in Fountain. The corp that a lot of them have moved into is a corp called Rebecca.
Rebecca? Wow. What's going on with Elo? What's going on with Elo Knight? He was supposed to be fighting for the Imperium.
I've seen him FCing for goons a few times recently.
Okay, so he's in there somewhere. He was in Fountain, wasn't he?
He's been all over the place. Fountain, Delve, various places. He has been FCing for Goonswarm, but with his departure from Origin and what's going on with Volta, I believe, yes, Origin has shed a lot of members, and a lot of them are going different ways. Mm-hmm. Quite a few of them are going to a corp called Rebecca that they're,
so Sakasaki
now finding content in.
Sakasaki says he saw him in Delve recently, or yesterday. All right, well.
Yeah, Elo's alt that he used to FC Frat with is still in Frat, though.
Right. Well, who knows what that's about? I mean, he's committed to fighting for the Imperium, or hired to do so. I don't know if it was established that he was actually hired, but wouldn't be shocking if he was.
He makes the claim he's not being paid, and I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to fight for what you consider the underdog, or wherever you think you're going to get the best action.
Or wherever he's got the biggest grudges with. Oh,
right. So you have a grudge against him, or he has a grudge against you, either way?
But either way, like...
certainly, if there's a nemesis pair in this game in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been between me and Elo, so... I noted they played at least a little factor. Say what?
That's you talking. Would he say the same thing? Because, I
don't know. But certainly we've been on the other side of basically every conflict for all of the conflicts. I've made it a point to always, beat up on him as much as possible. So,
have you had words?
Not really. To be honest, true story, actually. I've spent more time in the Corp Origin than I have probably in any other Corp in the last 5 years.
What? Why? Do you have a spy in there? Or?
Yeah, I've had 2 long-term spies in Origin over the years.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're both burned now, so it's no biggie, but it's just kind of funny how that ended up working out, so.
Well, I hope you burned them for a good cause, or they just get sniffed out.
The first one I burned because I just got tired of it. After a while, you're like, yeah, I'm. You tell some other friends, you're like, yeah, I'm Villy on this character. I think I told Lou Cypher, and somehow it leaked to the rest of Mortis Angels or something at the time, and eventually it made its way back But and then the other one, I think I got IP sniffed out or something like that. I got lazy with my VPN one night probably.
Ah.
And that one was a super spy too, so I was super sad about that one.
Oh, that is a bad one.
I started to wonder whether it was a case of, that whole saying of like, oh, there's always like, 10 Black Legion spies on comms kind of thing. That in actual fact, one of those is actually one of your spies that was trying to spy on Black Legion.
Well, true story. Like I used to have a lot of fun with it during the Fraternity War, because I'd be in Origin comms and they'd be like literally fighting my fleet, and like they'd be shit talking the hell out of me. And like I remember multiple nights where I'd like make like a Reddit comment or whatever on Reddit, like during the fleet, just to stir them up on comms. It's just great fun.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. We're way over time, but this has been an amazing show because I figured some things out. I'm committed to them until they get disproven, which I don't think they ever will be, because people are gone. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally off. But thanks very much, everyone, for coming by and watching today. It was more of a discussion than anything else. Yes.
Sure. I think we should cover the few things that CCP did recently, just to make sure that people know if they haven't noticed. Aurora did a really nice how to actually fly in EVE Online, which I think was kind of cool. And
holy cow, I had that idea.
It was really good and fairly long, going into a lot of details on how to fly manually and why and all that stuff. Very much basic things,
in combat.
But still really, really well done. And earlier, CCP was actually doing a 3D modeling live on their stream, which was also kind of cool. So if anyone is interested in any of those topics, they can go and catch the VODs over on CCP's Twitch.
All right, excellent. Yeah, and also, if you like this kind of content and you want to see us continue to grow and go, please go to patreon.com/Matterall and support us. And if you do, you get into a special channel that we have where I talk personally to the Patreons, not to bless them with my presence, but to actually tell them what's going on behind the scenes and what we're doing. So those guys have a stronger connection to TIS. Become one of those guys. Patreon.com/Matterall. And also make sure
because we're on Twitch, and Matterall is too much of a nice guy to say it, you can always sub, donate, or do whatever you can to help the channel.
Yeah, and if you see us out there on thank you, Billy. Because you're here, I'm remembering to do this sort of thing. Remember to give us like reviews and upvotes and that kind of stuff, because all that helps social media surface the stuff. And one last thing I'm trying to do, and I hope we get this off the ground, is we want to take our Twitter that we don't really use for much except occasionally to announce that there's a show on or something, which is not a good use for it. And we're going to just start pumping news through our Twitter. So you want to find us at TIS_Eve. That is Talking in Stations, and we will start broadcasting little news bits, battle reports, and all that kind of stuff every day. Okay, thanks very much. You are going to continue down this road today with Ron, USMC. He's going to take you through the battles that are going on today. He's got a great thing going where if you put !war in his channel, it'll pop up the basic milestones of the war so far, which I think is a brilliant thing to do. I thought it was a great show too, Landon, and who else said that? Yeah, JDog 800. I had a lot of fun with this one. Who else? And West Elbow. So I hope you guys did too. This was cool. I learned some things. All right, we will see you next time. That's it. Here, stay tuned for Ron.